Hi everyone, I am Sarah Rizvi from Better Results. Better Results is a premium edtech platform which provides high quality courses, master classes, and mentorship programs. The primary focus of Better Results is to enhance skill based learning and provide practical legal knowledge to law students, lawyers, chartered accountants, and professionals from across the globe. I, on behalf of the entire Bettering Results team, welcome you all to the fifth episode of Learners Interview Series. For this episode, we have Parth Samdani here with us. Hi, Parth.
Hi, Sarah.
Moving ahead, I would like you to introduce yourself first before we can start the questionnaire. Over to you, Parth.
Right. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. For every viewer who's watching this, hi everyone. I am Paarth Samdani. I am presently a final year law student, and I recently graduated from Alliance School of Law, Bangalore. I was a part of the IPR mentorship course that was released by Bettering Results around a year and a half ago. I was part of the first batch of the course.
Perfect. I'm glad to also know that Parth, you have recently secured a pre-placement offer from Khaitan Company after you completed the IPR course with better results. So I would like to ask what initially drew you to the field of IPR and how did you decide to pursue it as a career?
Right. So in terms of IP, it is definitely a non-traditional career option, especially since it is one of the niche of fields that you have out there in law. I was first drawn towards IP when I had worked on a certain case, a certain project during one of my first internships. I was interning at a full service law firm in Mumbai, and I was a part of the corporate team. Therein, they also handled a bit of TMT and a bit of IP work, and I was allowed to work on one of these projects. And in contrast to the other corporate work that I was getting, including contract drafting and contract vetting, I found IP rather interesting. I found it a little different, and I conducted my own research in the area. I decided it was a lucrative enough field to maybe pursue my career, and from there on, I kept reading. I also took up a couple of courses here and there, and I was drawn to the field of IP as a career option.
Good to know that. So, in this whole process, how did IPR course of better results help you in preparing for your internships and ultimately securing the pre-placement offer?
Right. So I think I took the course in my fourth year. In my fourth year, I'd already done one IP internship with Khaitan. Prior to that, I think I had IP core as a subject. My college does offer IP core as a compulsory subject for each student to learn. So I had a bit of idea as to what exactly entails IP and what is the kind of work that I would be getting in the field. Once I done my first internship, I was in a better place to understand the expectations of the law firms from maybe graduates who would be wanting to work in the IP space. And I saw the betting results course, and I decided that this would be a great way to maybe gain some more understanding as to what law firm partners or maybe senior members in the IP teams expect from each individual. And since my goal was always to maybe have a career in IP or related spaces, I found that the bettering results course, which offered me the opportunity to speak to partners, speak to senior associates, and delve into each individual subject area under IP with great amount of detail. I found this course to be very helpful, especially in at least making a mark during my internships because I was already knowledge ready. It was more of a lack of experience, which could obviously be catered to during all of my internships.
All right, good to know that as well. So, in this whole process, I have another question which is quite similar, but yes, something very important to know that how did the IPR course of veteran results differ from the resources you would have used previously, or any course that you might have taken before IPR course of BR?
Right. So prior to BR, I've definitely tried to, take up some IP courses here and there, whether they're available on Coursera or other platforms. The issue with all of these courses primarily is number one, they don't typically focus on Indian IP laws. And as a practicing lawyer who does want to have a career in India, I found it a little redundant to keep, looking at foreign jurisdictions and the way they practice their IP because the systems do differ a lot. And secondly, very honestly, they lack a human touch. The Bettering Results course had us interact with partners from law firms across the country, interacting with these partners who worked at tier ones, who were working in the space, who've been working in the space for a long period of time. in addition to subject matter knowledge, also helped me understand the contemporary issues that the field is currently facing. It helped me understand the demand that is there for IP lawyers in the country. And it also allowed me to adjust my expectations and become the kind of lawyer that would be employable in the future.
Okay, so what were some of the most valuable skills or insights you gained from the IPR course, and how did you apply them during your internships?
Right. During the IP mentorship program, I think we were introduced to each specific subject area under IP, and we had at least 4 or 5 sessions dedicated to each subject area under IP. IP can be classified into around 5 to 7 major bodies depending on what you consider IP. Typically, what happens is people read up the Trademarks Act, they read up the Copyright Act, and they feel like they're well prepared to maybe have a career in IP. The issue is we aren't really exposed to the other subject areas per se. So the moment I got some matter expertise on maybe say patents or trade secrets, geographical indications, all of these definitely help me gauge a better understanding of what intellectual property rights is. And if when you're aiming for a tier one law firm who's practicing IP, they don't typically only restrict themselves to trademarks or copyrights. They take up matters that span across all gamuts of IP. So having this subject matter knowledge through the betting results course obviously gave me an edge over other people who would have probably been interning there at the same time.
Okay, now moving to your experience during your internships, what were some of your key takeaways from your internship experiences in the IPR team at Indus Law and Khaitan Company?
Right. So at the very outset, I'd like to thank Bettering Results for the opportunity to intern with Indus Law. As a part of the mentorship program, I was afforded an opportunity to work with the IP team based out of Bangalore. My key takeaways would be number one, be very familiar with the subject matter. If you decide to enter a niche space, you need to be very familiar with the laws um, that are presently available and that are presently governing the space in India. Number two, be very up to date with the case law. There are a lot of landmark judgments that keep coming up in niche and relatively newer fields, and it's important to keep yourself updated with how the courts are interpreting the law. And number three, be diligent. Very honestly, there is no scope for small mistakes. Even something like a formatting error could, tip off your chances or, help you get a callback internship or something along those lines. So these are the three primary things that I believe one should focus on during their internships and one should really, really, really work towards.
Okay, so just connecting to what you have just said, how do you keep yourself, what resources basically you rely upon to keep yourself updated with the latest developments and changes in the field of?
Right. So this tracks back to what one of my mentors back during my internship had told me. He said that in order to maybe make your mark in the field of IP, you have to be up to date with each and every single recent development that has happened in the field. For this, he's specifically told me to rely on the actual cases, the reported judgments that are put out on the court websites. Because the difference between knowing what is relevant and what is not could be you reading the entire case judgment instead of a case summary. So I typically like referring to the Delhi High Court website for any IP matters that they do put out, or other relevant high courts that do take up a lot of IP matters or have specialized IP benches. In addition to this, I also often do rely on some blogs here and there. For example, Spicy IP for Indian related IP issues, or maybe IP Cat for global IP issues. And lastly, I've also subscribed to a couple of newsletters that are put out by law firms on a regular basis. Any law firm that has a fully functioning IP team typically tends to release a knowledge management newsletter, and they do cover recent IP developments in the country. So I believe holistically, if you do consume information from all of this, you would be in a better place to understand any developments that are in the field of IP.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that insight, Parth. The next question to you is, what advice would you give to law students and aspiring IPR professionals who are looking to build their skills and knowledge in the field?
Right. So the first thing I'd like to mention is that IP is definitely a niche practice area, and a little bit of a reality check is that the same amount of hiring that happens in maybe the corporate and the lit teams does not happen in niche spaces such as IP. So definitely you need to make a mark when you are going out and interning. And as such, I would suggest if you do want to take up IP as a career option, you'll have to decide rather early in your career that yes, IP is the way I want to go. Because when law firms typically look at recruiting freshers for IP positions, they want somebody who's had at least a couple of months in the space before. So typically, maybe taking up IP internships or related internships with teams such as media and entertainment, or if a law firm has a sports law team, the sports law team, from your third year onwards, would put you in a better place to maybe get a PPO or to join an IP team as a fresher graduate. Other than this, be very clear with the basics of the Trademark and Copyright Act. This is something that you will come across during your internships on the most regular basis, because every firm, if they do not practice other areas of IP, definitely do have a trademark and a copyright team. So being familiar with the basics of prosecution and trademark litigation would be very helpful. The copyright, be familiar with the basic sections of the act as to what constitutes a copyright, because all of these things do go on to help you make a mark when you are asking for a callback internship or if you're asking for a PPO.
Totally agree with that. Next question to you, Parth, is what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced during your internship and how did you overcome them?
Right. So, probably the biggest challenge I faced during my internship was taking on much more than I could handle, taking on much more in terms of work. And I ended up trying to maybe over deliver. And this had a huge impact on the quality of work that I was putting out. And this was pointed out by some of the seniors in the team. So, my advice here would be to ensure that when you do take up an internship and when you are taking up work, you ensure that everybody knows about your bandwidth and you ensure that you put out at least a minimum standard quality of work. Because if there is a lack in terms of, if there's a lacuna in your knowledge of law, that is something that can always be improved on. But if there is a lack of quality in the very work product that you're sending out to the team, whether it be in terms of formatting, whether it be in terms of grammar, you might have missed out on certain, maybe certain pointers that were asked that you were specifically asked to mention in the work product. All of this does not reflect well on the quality of work that you have sent out, and typically it has a bad association with the kind of work that you're doing. So my biggest suggestion here would be to ensure that you do take up only as much work as you can do. You always leave a buffer in the deliverable time that you put out, and you also ensure that you very clearly understand the instructions. If there are any doubts, make sure you reach out to the team and ask the team as to what is the expectation out of this work product, rather than maybe swinging in the dark and attempting to connect with what's correct or what's incorrect.
Okay, and before we conclude the session, I have one more question to ask. How did you manage your academic commitments with your professional and personal interests or goals?
Right. So, in college, I've actually been rather active in the extracurricular and co-curricular space, whether it be in terms of mooting, going out for debates, months, playing football for the university team or whatnot. So I've had to manage a lot of expectations within college, within my personal life, and within all of the extracurricular co-curricular space. Very honestly, I had to devote enough time to each aspect, whether it be in terms of studying for exams. I had to set aside some time during my day. I had to ensure that I was working on my moods separately. I had to maybe stay up late a couple of nights here and there, and maybe finish work that I had during my internships, etc. All of this just goes towards one's will and determination. At the end of the day, you have to make time for what you deem is important. You may have to sacrifice on certain things here and there, whether it be in terms of fun, going out. If you want to have a balanced life in college, law is a very demanding field, and um, very honestly, if you want to secure, maybe good internships or good jobs, you would have to distinguish yourselves from the large amount of competition that exists in the industry as a whole. And this is not to say I've not had fun during college. I've obviously, had a rather interesting or good college experience, a good college life. But ensuring that you do what's important in the moment. If it's before your exams, you ensure you're devoting time before your exams. You maybe start revising a month before. If it's during a moot, you ensure that you are reaching out maybe 1 month before to the faculty to understand what the area of law is, and drafting much more in advance and not procrastinating basically. So all of these small things go up to you having a non-stressful journey as a law student.
and not burning out before you even join the profession.
Absolutely. So, Parth, before we conclude, any last two bits that you'd like to share with anyone and everyone who would be watching this?
Right. Very honestly, I think a lot of us get demotivated right at the outset when we're unable to secure a tier one internship, a tier one job right out of college. And as somebody who's been part of this process, the biggest thing I'd like to say is do not get caught up in this race. You just have to develop your skills. You have to ensure that you upskill as much as possible, whether it be through courses, whether it be through reading books, reading acts. Everything that you invest in yourself at the end of the day, it does reflect in your career journey towards the end. Because if you are able to, if you have the expertise, if you have the knowledge, very soon somebody is going to recognize you, somebody is going to take you up. Make sure you keep networking, make sure you keep speaking to people in the industry, in the field, and make sure you're up to date with all of the relevant recent developments. All of these things go a long way in a law student's career.
All right. Thank you so much, Parth. It was interesting speaking with you and knowing your journey, right from taking up IPR course at Bettering Results to grabbing a PPO at Khaitan. Many congratulations to that, and everyone in the entire Bettering Results team wishes you a very bright future ahead and all the best for all your future endeavors. Thank you so much. Stay connected and have a great day ahead.